Woodblock printmaker David Ball here in our Hokusai workshop with the next and very long overdue installment in the series on the production of our version of Hokusai's Great Wave print. Proofing and adjustments of the blocks has been proceeding very steadily, and we've got a print to show you tonight, as you can see. Do I hear finally from the audience out there? I should mention that the lateness of this episode isn't related at all to any problems with the print production. The shop here has been getting steadily busier as the busy summer tourist season approaches. And then in addition to that, I had to take a big chunk of time out to go and visit my family in Canada. It was my parents' 65th wedding anniversary this summer, and that's an event I really couldn't miss. But here we are, and let's get to it. The main content of this episode will be watching our printer Shinkichi Numabe as he works through the block set making this proof version. That work took place not here in the Hokusai workshop, nor in his own home. It all happened in what years back used to be known as the Yoshida Hanga Academy. It's the building run by the famous Yoshida family of printmakers. Numabe-san still works for them, making reprints of Toshi Yoshida prints, interspersing those jobs with work for other publishers, such as myself. Before we actually started printing, Numabe-san and I spent quite a bit of time going through the image and my block set. I've been at this now for 6 months, but he doesn't have much of an idea about the kind of things I want to focus on yet. So it was important for the two of us to spend quite a lot of time going over many parts of the image. As an experienced craftsman, of course, he's made this image any number of times before during his career, and I think because of that it's really important that I tell him exactly the kind of things I want to see in this one. Otherwise, if I give him a free hand, his version will come out pretty much just like the other ones on the market these days. Here he is seeing the key block for the first time, and this might be about the moment when he realized that this is not going to be your everyday simple reproduction job. That piece of wood is very hard and very heavy, and because there are both fine lines on it and wide areas of color, it's extremely difficult to print. After we had a good look at all the blocks, it was time to get started on the printing. And now over the next few minutes, you'll see the first proof versions of our print start to come to life. I'm going to handle the editing of this video a little different from some of the previous videos that show my printmaking. I usually try and trim the clips a little bit so that they don't get too long, but this one I want you to really understand just how long it takes to brush out each color, how long it takes to rub each color. So as much as possible, I'm going to leave each clip as it is so you can see just what kind of work is involved in making one of these prints. ニカはいつもね、版の上ですか？絵の具のいつも版の上でニカは。そうですね。絵の具の中じゃない。できないですね。そうそうそう。足手まではそうそう。This is the key block here. As I mentioned before, it's a combination of fine lines and wider areas. And it's really a challenge for him. If he puts too much pigment on, the fine lines will clog. If he presses too hard, the fine lines will be blurred. If he doesn't put enough pigment on, the wide areas won't be strong enough. It's really a very, very difficult balance between those two competing points. The voices you hear in the background are actually coming from the next room. It's Mr. Tsukasa Yoshida. He's the grandson of Hiroshi Yoshida, who started this whole printmaking family. And he's giving an art lesson to a gentleman who's come in looking for some advice on his new picture. Whenever I'm over at Numabe-san's place, I'm reminded again by seeing scenes like this of his beautiful collection of brushes. And he's built up over many, many decades and inherited from his teacher. And I'm so jealous. Look how soft and beautiful that brush is. As we progress through the proofing of these blocks, you might notice that some of our clothes change from clip to clip. Proofing wasn't a one-day affair. On the first day, we simply made a quick run through the blocks, mostly to familiarize Numabe-san with my approach to the print, and also to check that my carving was okay. Actually, it wasn't completely. As it turned out, I had left out one small place on the block that printed the woody color on the boats, leaving a white unprinted patch. Once back here at my bench that first evening, I cut a plug for that spot and carved it to the correct shape. When the next proofing began a couple of days later, the boat color came out as it should. Those of you who have seen some of the previous videos in this series might be very interested in this scene. This is where we put the straw matting on those boats. And as I mentioned in the earlier video, the original versions of this print had the sky and the straw matting on a single block. So when the gradation was put at the sky at the end of the print, the matting became darker. Well, as you can see now, we've kept them on separate blocks, so the matting has its own colors and the sky will not interfere with those. I had to think twice whether or not to include this scene, and there are some people on my staff here who said, Dave, please cut this out, don't show this, but that's not the way I want to do things. What Numabe-san is using here is a modern baron. It's a ball-bearing baron. He's using it, applying it to a sheet of mylar over the back of the paper. I guess perhaps some people think we shouldn't be using a modern tool like this. We should stick exactly with only the old tools. But I'm not such an old fuddy-duddy. You know, there are cases when a more modern, more powerful baron comes into good use, and we're going to use it when we think it's necessary. Another block change I needed to make after that first day of proofing was in some of the foam. When comparing our print with some of the earlier editions that we've been looking at, Metropolitan Museum, British Museum, etc., it seemed that many of my foam bubbles were a tad on the small side. So once I had the blocks back here in Asakusa after the first day, I got my lens out and I recut much of the foam just a little bit wider. The next day of proofing Numabe, I was really happy to see that because it makes it much easier for him to keep those white spots free of paste. Now this is a very, very difficult block to print, and contrary to what I said before, I actually have shortened this. It would just be too long. Look what he's doing here with the brush. Lightly, 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 touching, touching, touching. What he's doing is he's pulling the paste out of all the little holes in the block that will represent the foam. If he misses one of them, it'll be blobbed up with ink, and it'll look funny. He's got to cover the whole thing, pulling that paste out of each one of those holes. Look at this work. So here we go with the final stage, the deep gradation at the bottom of the sky behind Mount Fuji, which I thought was perhaps not part of the original design. You're going to see it happen here twice, because to get it nice and rich and with a good smooth blended edge, Numabe-san puts it on fairly lightly twice. And again, this is another one of his beautiful soft brushes. I should stop talking about the same thing. So there we are. Once he's finished, the post-mortems began, and actually as I speak they are still going on, trying to figure out how to handle all the details about each aspect of this print. At the end of the second day of proofing, Numabe-san and I sat and inspected all the results and discussed how to move forward. I've now got the block set back here again because I still need to make a number of very small adjustments, including some more of that foam. While I'm doing that, he'll be finishing up a job he is currently working on for the Yoshida family, making another batch of Toshi Yoshida's well-known Shinjuku design. Actually, this is a hugely interesting project in itself, and I'm kicking myself that I can't get more time to go over there and study the block set and watch him working on this. There is so much I could learn by watching such a complex print come to life. Once he has got that work completed, he will begin the first batch of Our Great Waves, which we will then immediately ship out to the first group of waiting Kickstarter backers. Now, I'm of course going to spend more time showing you our print in more detail, but we'll do that in the next video once we have the first batch of real prints in hand. Before we close off this episode by heading outside to visit a beautiful Japanese garden just in the next block to us, I must apologize again for the delay in getting this video prepared for you. It's a bit difficult these days, balancing all the things competing for my attention, and the print parties have been taking a huge amount of time. Hundreds of people have now come through our party room, making their own prints to take back to their home country. And I think that when I get a minute, I should really try and make a video showing you one of those print party sessions. Anyway, thank you again. Let's calm yourself down now and let's take a stroll out in that garden. I'll see you next time. Thank you very much, and good night for now. The reflection of that pagoda in the pond is your clue to where this is. It's the Dempo-in Teien, the garden hidden actually in the Sensoji compound itself. Access to this garden is usually extremely restricted, and it's only very once in a while that they open it to the public. And this year, on the very last day of that opening, I got a chance to get in there with my camera. How close is this garden to my shop? I tell you, if I stood just outside my front door and hucked a baseball up into the air, I could get it over the wall into this pond. And I'm by no means a major league pitcher.